Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today, and I want to say thank you to AWS for inviting me to be here today. I'm happy to have the opportunity to talk to you about the fourth industrial revolution and how vital cloud computing is to it. I want to thank Dr. Rowe for his remarks, which I found very interesting and instructive. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about the global policy environment for cloud computing and Korea's place in that. So let me start by telling you a little bit about myself and my organization. I am the president and CEO of the Business Software Alliance, and an organization that represents the global software industry. Our organization works with governments around the world on policies to promote software innovation, and that includes policies like data transfers, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, trade, intellectual property, and workforce development. I know that you are familiar with many of our companies, which include the most innovative companies in the world, including AWS, but also Adobe, Apple, Autodesk, Microsoft, IBM, Salesforce, just to name a few. And our companies are heavily invested in the technologies that make up the fourth industrial revolution. We are headquartered in Washington, D.C., which is where I'm coming from today, but we have offices around the world, including right here in Seoul. So, turning to the fourth industrial revolution, we are living in fascinating times, and the fourth industrial revolution has become a term that is widely used and one of the most discussed topics here in Korea in political, corporate, and social circles. According to Bloomberg, Korea was the most innovative country in 2017, and we are excited that Korea has embraced the fourth industrial revolution and has underscored its importance to the Korean economy by creating 2 public sector committees to focus on it. One, the Fourth Industrial Revolution Presidential Committee, which is reporting directly to President Moon, and the National Assembly's Fourth Industrial Revolution Special Committee. But what is the fourth industrial revolution? Well, as Dr. Rowe explained, in the last few years we have seen amazing technological advances in a number of fields, including in cloud computing, artificial intelligence, blockchain, quantum computing, virtual reality, and the Internet of Things. These cutting-edge developments are all possible because of software, and they have the potential to improve every industry and every life in every part of the globe. So I'm going to give a few examples of how these technologies are being used. But the reason that I'm naming these examples is to illustrate in a practical way what cloud computing can do. So just to name a few, we are using machine learning to sift through massive amounts of medical research data to help doctors both discover treatments that don't exist today and to help them diagnose their patients more accurately and more quickly. We are using artificial intelligence to help visually impaired people receive real-time descriptions of people and objects, which dramatically changes how they can interact with their environments, including how they can interact at work. We are creating smarter and safer cities by integrating sensors into bridges, which is both helpful in terms of increasing the safety of those bridges, but also cutting travel time and cutting fuel. We're using artificial intelligence to help farmers grow more food and save money. And we're using these technologies in space to make entirely new scientific discoveries. All of these technologies have one thing in common, and that is that they are powered by cloud computing. Cloud computing has emerged as one of the most transformative technologies of this generation. It is fundamentally revolutionizing how IT is delivered and consumed. The cloud gives large and small organizations access to affordable and massive computing power, and they are using that to streamline their work day to day, to save money, to increase security, and to help the environment. And as we heard, governments are turning to the cloud to improve delivery of citizen services, to save costs themselves, and to increase security. Clearly, cloud computing is helping people and organizations do great things, and it has the potential to do even more in the future. But in order to realize that potential, governments, including the government of Korea, need to ensure that the regulatory frameworks they adopt are conducive to promoting cloud adoption. This will stimulate growth and innovation in the IT sector, in cloud computing, and in fourth industrial revolution technologies. It will also lead to an increase in economic and global competitiveness. So BSA has developed an international framework that looks at 7 key areas and then assesses 24 countries in terms of how they are doing in each one of those areas to promote cloud adoption in their market. And the 7 areas are data privacy, security, cybercrime, intellectual property rights, international harmonization of standards, promoting free trade, and IT readiness and broadband deployment. I encourage all of you to read the report in full, which you can find on the BSA website. But today I'm going to highlight a few key findings of the report. So I'm going to turn first to privacy, which is an enormously important issue. BSA companies are at the forefront of protecting privacy, and is enormously important to our industry that cloud users know that their data will be protected and will not be used in ways that are unknown or unauthorized to them. In looking at the 24 countries that we examined, what we found is that many of those countries have data privacy frameworks in place. Many of those laws are now being updated in part to come in line with new international standards, such as the APEC cross-border privacy rule system. Around the world, we found that Canada and Mexico score highest in terms of data privacy. They offer comprehensive privacy regimes, but without onerous or overly rigid restrictions. On the other hand, there are countries with no laws, such as Brazil and Thailand, who scored very low in this area. Korea has personal data protection laws in place, but these come with very strict requirements that make them, in our view, overly difficult to use. So we are pleased that the Korean government has taken protection of data privacy so seriously, but we feel that the law as it stands today is overly rigid in a way that ultimately will hamper the adoption of cloud computing. And so for this reason, we have ranked Korea in the middle of the 24 countries, coming in with a score of 11. The second topic that I want to turn to is security. We all know that security is a major concern of governments around the world. And users of cloud computing, again, need to be certain that cloud service providers can manage the security risks of the data that they store. Looking around the world, many countries have already implemented cybersecurity strategies. And many of these national strategies promote a private sector public partnership in order to increase cybersecurity. In terms of the overall rankings, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Australia, the United States, and Japan ranked highest in terms of their cybersecurity regime. On the other end of the scale, Mexico, Argentina, and Vietnam record the lowest scores, mainly due in delays in implementing any sort of national cybersecurity strategy. Again, this is an area where we found that Korea has made much progress, but in our view, there is room for improvement. And that improvement is in large part because Korea's approach is not one that is in line with the international approach that many governments have taken. And specifically, with respect to network separation, we have concerns that network separation as an approach will ultimately not be effective in achieving the security aims that the Korean government wants to achieve, and will inevitably hinder the adoption of cloud computing. A second concern that we have is with respect to security testing. And again, it was very interesting to hear and very good to hear the remarks that Dr. Rowe was making before. But we have concerns about any system where products that have met international security standards are forced to go through additional extensive security testing. With respect to intellectual property rights are an area that are very important in order to encourage additional research and development and investment in fourth industrial revolution technologies. And we found that the Korean legal system has very good protections for innovation and for promoting research and development. And so Korea ranks quite high in that area, coming in at number 5 around the world. And one last area that I will highlight is IT readiness and broadband deployment. This is an area in which Korea, again, scores very high, with Singapore, Japan, and Korea receiving the highest scores around the world. Overall, the key takeaway from our 2018 Global Cloud Computing Scorecard is that countries that put in place a policy environment that promotes cloud adoption will flourish in terms of productivity and economic growth. And those countries that are promoting free movement of data, flexible data privacy protections, intellectual property, and robust deterrence of cybercrime are at the top of those lists. So let me just conclude briefly by saying we are very pleased to hear that the Korean government has formed a collaborative body among 5 agencies that are looking at the issue of how to promote adoption of cloud computing. And we would respectfully request that that committee be looking at 3 areas. One is with respect to privacy. Because Korea last year joined the APEC cross-border privacy rules, we believe this is a good moment for looking at the privacy regime and considering a recalibration to streamline some of the requirements in the privacy regime. Second, with respect to security, again, we have concerns with network separation as an approach and with data localization in public finance and healthcare sectors. And third, with respect to international harmonization of standards, we note that the Korean government has previously said that it would reconsider its approach to standard certification. But to date, this has not happened, and so we would ask the Korean government to continue to look at that area. It has been really remarkable to see the innovation that Korean companies and the Korean government have accomplished over the last few years. And we, as BSA, are very excited to be working with the Korean government on these issues. And so I will end my remarks, again, by saying how happy I am to be here today and how much we look forward to continuing to work with the government of Korea as it moves forward. Thank you very much.